You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Welcome to another wonderful episode. Today we have another amazing guest, Nathan Farrugia. He's an entrepreneur, storyteller, business coach, record-breaking adventurer, TEDx speaker, Vistage owner, philanthropist, husband, and father, and is also the author of A Million Steps, an amazing new book that has come out recently. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro.
You're so welcome. There's more, but we didn't want to have me speaking the whole time, so we'll just dig into that in person. So, Nathan, I'd love to hear more about your adventures, and you were telling me a little bit about the records you're breaking. That's fascinating. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I was always into sports when I was a kid, and for me, I was very severely asthmatic, so I had to find an outlet to be able to use my energy as a child. And sports was a good way to do that because it also helped with therapy and taking care of my lungs. And basketball was my favorite sport, and I did that for many, many years, playing at the professional level and national teams. But then I had a really bad injury, and I had to stop playing, and I started moving in towards the more endurance, slower sort of sports, and discovered that I have a bit of a knack for endurance. Not very fast, but I can go for long. And that sort of journey of discovery allowed me to continue to do the sports I wanted to do, at the same time discover the limits of what I thought was my human sort of capacity. So I turned into a human guinea pig and started to explore how far I could push myself. And I did that in swimming and running, cycling, endurance related sports. And what I also found is that it generated quite a bit of interest from media and a platform that I was getting to raise funds for charitable causes. I combined my passion for sports with the ability to make a difference and make an impact on society through the fundraising. So it just kept egging me on to go further and discover more and find where those limits might lie, which then obviously led me to understand really how the mind works and how often self-limiting beliefs are the things that hold us back versus us, able to unlock that potential we have inside.
So what are some of the records that you've broken?
Well, the one I sort of have most pride in is we set out to run. Well, I set out to run a marathon in every EU state. There's 27 countries in the EU, and the goal was within a year to run all the 27 marathons. But logistically, it was going to be impossible for me to travel often. So I wondered if I could do them back to back, and I did, and I managed to complete 27 marathons in 27 countries in 27 days back to back.
That is insane. Insane. You had no break to recover.
No, and we were jumping onto trains and planes and automobiles to get to the next country, run a marathon, clean yourself up, jump on the next train, and we had a motorhome for one part of it as well. So living in a box on wheels for 27 days. And it was an amazing experience, an amazing adventure. But more so, we got so much attention. We raised over 100,000 euros for charitable causes just through Facebook because we generated a social following for that.
Well, you are a beast because most people need muscle recovery. You probably weren't getting a lot of sleep if you were one day. So you had no recovery at all. Well, that is huge as far as mindset. Now, when you did this, were you already a coach with, what you teach on leadership and resilience in business?
No, I was a CEO of a business, and I took a month off to do this, and obviously the fundraising, which took time as well. So it was a journey of discovery for me. And I, to be fair, when I started out, I didn't think I'd finish because everybody around me was saying that that's impossible. And I thought I would deteriorate over time. But actually, the interesting thing, and this is around the sort of positive psychology element, is that when I hit halfway and my brain switched for, we're on the way home now, I actually started getting less tired, less sore. And I actually started getting faster. So I was running sub 3:30 marathon times, which is really, I'm not a fast athlete, as I said, just because mentally I was looking forward to the end of it.
Well, that is amazing. And it says a lot for this mindset of burnout. I am hearing more and more in the last, I think, 3 years, the burnout word. And I think the more people are talking about this, the more people are burning out. But you did not burn out. And that's so interesting. I think a lot about this because people are, oh, I burned out. And certainly we are getting tired or some things happen. But I'm wondering how much of this burnout is a self-fulfilling prophecy. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that burnout is often the ability or the inability to control your situation. So you're pushing like Sisyphus a rock up a hill with no end in sight. So having a purpose, a clear purpose or a clear goal is important to actually reduce the chances of burnout. But it's also around understanding what is in your control and what is under your influence, and put your energy into something that's productive. If you're just treading water, you are going to get tired, and at some point you are going to give up and sink.
Okay. So very important when you have a purpose. And I've noticed that when you have a purpose and you're really into something, you just do the work. You don't think, gee, I'm getting burnt out at all. It's like you're just excited, right? So I feel burnout has a lot to do with people not being aligned and feeling the purpose in it. It's become like a job, even if they own a business. I feel like that's a lot of it. And maybe things are not working so well. So it's just like they are feeling like they're pushing that stone up the hill. I love the myth of Sisyphus, by the way. I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, now your book, A Million Steps. What does the book say, and what can people learn from your book about applying what you learned with your extreme sports and endurance to leadership and business?
So for me, the parallels between sports and business have always been there when you talk about performance, mindset, resilience, etc. But perhaps what I hope to deliver with the book, the insights there and the storytelling, is around the way to look at failure, or the way to set your for success, the importance of finding your flow state. In the book, I talk about a methodology that I use within my organization and also with our clients on looking at the elements required for high performance. And sometimes we're a bit flippant with things like purpose or BHAGs, but actually it's really the why is important, to quote Simon Sinek, but it's the how for me that is what makes a difference between a high performing individual organization and one that isn't. And so the things we found through this experimentation of pushing the limits.
So the book, A Million Steps, you're talking about your endurance and all this mindset. How does that apply to business and leadership?
Well, a lot obviously has been said and written about the analogies between sports and business, and sort of the elements of resilience and practice, and 1,000 hours or 10,000 hours to hit a golf ball gives you the road to mastery. So what I try to do is give a different sort of sense of what it's like to push your limits and understand how you can engineer that, A, to avoid burnout, 2, to get to performance quicker, but also at the same time, build work-life balance. And again, it's a term I don't like to use because for me, it's not about balance, but about flow. And a lot of the descriptions around the book and the events within it are around what key elements or ingredients are present in the various elements of that. And are they also present in business? And what we realize is that, certain things like being in flow works both in sports, endurance, where you lose yourself in the activity and it feels effortless. And that it also happens in business, in groups of people that are working together in synergy to be able to achieve a common goal. We talk about social flow. The second part is impact. So what we found is that high performers know exactly the outputs they're generating. They measure things. And again, when sports, it's the same thing. If I know how many kilometers are left, I'm more likely to keep pushing. And in business, it's the same. If we use the right objectives and key results, it tends to drive performance upwards. So impact is important, but I think impact in the wider sense as well, as what's the impact we're having as human beings on our teams, as leaders, or our communities as organizations. And understanding that impact also is a driver of performance. The third part is the roles and responsibilities that we take. So, as an athlete in a race, your job is to put one foot in front of the other and get to the finish line. But when you're organizing an extreme challenge, you have to make sure you're organized, that you're leading crew, that you've planned everything in advance. And so the roles switches from time to time. And sometimes you just need to be the athlete and use your lungs and your legs. And sometimes it's leadership. It's making sure the team stay motivated when you've been on the road for 27 days and everybody's starting to get tired. And it's the same in business. What's our responsibilities? We often think about leadership as a role, but we're parents. we're colleagues, we're sons and daughters.
Mm-hmm.
How do we factor all those things in to raise our game in every aspect of life? Because the more fulfilled we are, the better we are overall. And the last part is effort towards excellence. So it's not just about pushing hard, the Sisyphus we mentioned earlier, but it's about effort towards excellence. So am I putting my energies into making myself or the team better? And therefore, there's a focused approach to putting energy in. So I'm not suggesting that, hard work doesn't play a part, but there has to be very, very directive hard work to a specific point where you're actually sharpening the saw, to quote Stephen Covey. So these are all the factors that we found. And I say we because most of them were, I was doing the effort physically, but it was a team effort in raising the funds, in raising the awareness, in organizing and planning. And these were the things we found were commonplace in any situation we were in.
Interesting you talk about flow, because we talked about flow with art for years.
Yes.
So it's good that they're finally realizing we need flow we know about sport and flow and art and flow.
Music.
But it's good now the conversation is about flow in business, and it's not about doing stuff you hate against the grain and no business life harmony, I call it, because I don't believe in balance. I believe balance can be over a year or a week and if we're just always trying to create like a balance, maybe balance isn't good. Maybe an imbalance is good, but maybe that's what gets us to somewhere and we find some harmonization.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins talks about that. So I love that we're talking about flow, and I completely agree. When we're in flow, you don't even notice the hours pass. You don't notice that you haven't eaten. Maybe not a good thing, but I like when I forget that I haven't eaten lunch or whatever. I'm like, oh, I was in flow. It was great. It wasn't like, gee, I'm really hungry. I know when I'm not in flow is when I'm thinking about my next meal. Yeah. Like when I know I'm not in flow, I'm like, wait a minute, I must not be really in depth. So tell us a story of a client where you saw an extreme change from what they were doing and then using your methods, something amazing that happened. I'm sure you've had some great transformations. What's one client story that comes up for you that is extraordinary?
Well, I mean, we do well with our clients, and I'm very happy for them when it works. But I would tell you probably the best examples are through COVID, where we had clients of ours who completely lost their business. Everything went back down to zero, had to rebuild, and they had to not stress or lose their mind in such a desperate situation with employees that weren't getting paid and clients not getting serviced. And I think for me, what struck me is that the business owners that looked at the situation objectively and focused on what they did well, or in essence, what got them into flow, allowed them to come out the other end sane. And again, constantly looking at what impact can I make. So, okay, I've shut my business. Can I volunteer my time and help in the community and make an impact that way? What about my roles and responsibilities? I've got time. Let me be a better parent and spend some more time with my kids. Now I'm stuck indoors. And so again, the same elements of what we saw with the fire, the analogy of the acronym of FIRE, FIRE is the same, effort towards excellence. You know what? I'm going to learn a language. I'm going to read more books. And those people came out of COVID in a much better place. So what we found is that, our colleagues and the business owners that we worked with, that literally some of them had lost their business, found that focusing on the FIRE methodology, keeping the fire alight, actually helped them get through it and come out sane. And we think about flow, and they did things, perhaps not work, but things like art or music, where they could get into their own flow. The impact they made, instead of in the business this time with a customer, was in the community, helping other people, sharing their wisdom, just getting on and doing stuff that somehow made them feel useful and making an impact. And the responsibilities they took, they shifted from being a leader in a business to being a better parent or husband or wife, and being more caring in those roles, rather than simply think about themselves as a business owner or as a CEO. And the last one, effort. It can be disconcerting to sit there and feel useless if you're not running a business, perhaps, but can you put that effort towards something else? And again, most people talked about taking care of their health more, reading more, learning a language, learning a skill. And all these things really helped holistically with these people who are struggling significantly, if you look at the business side. But as human beings, they came out better.
Actually, I thrived in COVID because people really needed my services. I was in complete flow in COVID. Things were going, I sort of felt a little tiny bit guilty because I think it might have actually helped my business because people really needed my services, which was to help people get clients online without seeing people.
Mm.
So I was in complete flow with COVID, and
Okay.
I'm often like the opposite of what's going on in the world. It's so strange. But okay, you talked a lot about like what what they did instead. But what about people that really need to have a business because they can't just take that time off and some people really need the money of a business. Have you helped people to find some other business to do rather than just do something completely different and give up? Because it sort of sounds a little bit like they kind of gave up on the business. I love that they were sort of like doing other things, but some people can't take that time to just go, you know what I mean? They
Yeah,
can't,
yeah.
they still have to have a business. Have you helped people to find another business that is more meaningful where they're more in flow?
I don't think at any point I would say they were giving up. I think there was a level of
Mm.
acceptance that if they were in
Mm.
hospitality and everything was shut,
Ah,
or in retail, they would
yeah.
just have to sit it out. But instead of sitting it out with
That's
their
it.
head in their hands,
Mm.
they took a different approach. So that's really what, those are the
Yeah.
examples earlier. I think, what we also saw is the great ideas don't come when you're under stress. Yeah. When you're under stress, you have clouded vision, you have foggy mind, and that doesn't work. So again, finding things that get you into flow, even if it's not work, actually opens your mind. And what we saw was some interesting
Mm.
insights and innovation coming from people whilst they were out on their morning run or whilst they were painting. And this allowed them to actually say, you know what, we've got a value proposition we can monetize that we're not using at the moment,
Mhm.
which would work online or would work in a local
Mm.
community where we have access. That allowed them to shift, to pivot essentially from their core business into something else, which probably was aligned in the sense that they had value already to propose and to monetize, but perhaps they weren't seeing the wood for trees. And this clarity only comes.
With that, mind brain activities, I used to go get my nails done because it would make me sit still for at least an hour. And also washing dishes, taking showers, walking. I get a lot of ideas when I'm on my hikes. Okay, I love it. And so you were inspired once you did all this 27 marathons, which is incredible. You were inspired then to start your own business after that?
Yes, I already had started dabbling with business on the side just for fun. I started my life as after university as an entrepreneur because I had studied healthcare and I had clinics and did various sort of entrepreneurial activities around that. But then I moved into organizations. I
Mhm.
wanted to have a bigger team, and I thought the fast track to go in and be a CEO of another organization. Um, but I always built businesses on the sides. And then when I decided to shift from the CEO role, I went into those and grew them.
Mm.
And it was a really interesting ride. Something sometimes worrying, sometimes scary, um,
Mhm.
but trying to practice what I preach obviously helps. I guess the sports or the endurance was a way for me to de-stress. I talk about my morning exercise as therapy. Um, so
Mm.
so I think that consistency and discipline do then to face the difficulties of running a business. I also went through COVID and had difficulties in some areas because one of our events company was completely shut down.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's easy to be overwhelmed by the world around you when things don't go your way.
Mm. Yet we all know in business and in life that how come we don't know that already? We already know that nothing's going to be completely smooth, but somehow we forget that things are going well. And then we wake up and I'm like, why am I surprised that something went wrong with tech today or this or that? It's really just about getting the average of, there are going to be some good things happen today and some things that maybe aren't so great. And if you have a day where everything is good, that's like a complete bonus in a business, isn't it? Or in a life or in a family, everything went well and the kids obeyed, they cleaned their rooms up, and I got new clients and there were no problems. I mean, we as human beings, maybe because it's our human nature to forget to keep going because, it's like they say that women who have babies, they forget how bad it is every time or they wouldn't want another baby, how painful, bad it is. And I think that's part of it. I think we are kind of generally optimistic as human beings that everything's going to run smoothly. And like, why didn't that run smoothly? Because that's life. So it's really about, I feel it's about like the just the numbers of some stuff's not going to be so great. Some's going to be fantastic and some's going to be very bad.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so what's one thing that you learned a lot with your endurance. And I see that really transformed your mindset because people were saying you couldn't do it. Then you saw you could do it. And then it actually got easier when it should have gotten harder because you should have had no energy. Go figure. So what's something that you'd like to share with people about mindset to really, destroy all these mindset ideas that we have that are holding us back? What's one thing that you discovered that really is like, wait a minute, there's this discovery and we all think this. What's that? One of those things that could actually help the listeners.
I would say I'll tell a simple anecdote, which I like. Those people that drive a car, whether it's a battery or a petrol, have a gauge that tells them when they're nearing empty, and usually a little light goes on. And most people know that light doesn't mean that the tank is empty, that there's more miles we can do. And some people choose to say, let's play it safe. As soon as the light's on, or even just before, I'll go and fill up the tank or charge the battery. And others will just say, well, yeah, I'll give it a little bit more. And then others go, I'm going to keep risking until I probably end up pushing the car. And for me, this is the analogy of how much far can we go? How much risk can we take? What's left in the tank? And the only way you're going to find out is when your car stops, when you're at the limit and you go, okay, now I know. And so this, for me, is the invitation for us to get out of our comfort zone and discover what's in that space, because there's so much more. And we're always surprised. Oh, I've been going for miles and I still haven't stopped. And this is true for life.
I have a Tesla, and if you don't get to those stations, like they're far, pretty far and few between. I'm trying to be more mindful than when I had a car, because my daughter's like, Mom, you're always like rushing around trying to find a gas station because it's like red and it's stressful, because I sort of say, oh, sure, I'll fill up. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot. But with the Tesla, you can't do that. I remember once Tesla they're giving you more notice now, but it used to be like just making it there. And we were on a road trip, and I said, okay, we're going to have 2%. When we got to, I thought, whoa, that's really cutting it fine. Okay. So we were going, and I said, if we miss this, we are going to have to get towed because there's not a charger. There's no way. So we're going past, and my daughter goes, and I go, I can't find this. And she says, Mom, there was a sign in that parking lot, Tesla. She saw it. She had not seen that. I would have been driving around and around and around, and I just made it. And I thought, wow, you really do have to be a little more careful about, but what I like what you're saying is, sure, let it happen, see what happens. I didn't want to have to go through towing and all that, but what happened was it caused me a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So I felt like maybe for me, preparing a bit better was better. And now I make sure that we get there, before.
Yeah. For me, it's the curiosity to know what it's going to be like beyond that line, beyond the unknown. Is the car going to stop at 1%? Or is there a little charge that's hidden from you that they factored in at the factory? And the same with fuel. How far can I actually go? How much liters of fuel is actually there when the light goes on? And that's, for me, that's the curiosity of finding out perhaps untapped potential or stuff I'm not good at, or I didn't think I was good at with a fixed mindset. So, we talk about growth mindset, creativity, discovery. This is all about going past the known.
Right. I agree with that. We kind of baby ourselves sometimes,
yes.
But you just keep going. It's like, wait, like you said, I just kept going, and I did the half, and I thought, wait, I also hired a personal trainer for that reason. And I mean, he's making me do stuff I'd never do it on my own. He goes, you can do another 10. Yeah. Okay. I'll try.
Yeah.
And he does the same thing you do. He kind of lets me know when there's like a little left, like you can do this. For sure, I would not be doing the workout on my own. There's no way. He pushes me, not so I injure myself. And I have learned a lot from that. I thought, well, I actually can get way stronger than I thought. So I appreciate that. Okay. So the message is, stop babying yourself and just keep going and see what happens. See how far you can go.
Yes.
See. And I don't mean burnout. I don't mean like don't sleep for 4 nights, because I don't think you're talking about that. I think you're talking about daring to do stuff.
Yes.
And experimenting.
And managing risk, managing risk. Risk can be managed. If you've got smart people around you, you can calculate for that and factor it in.
Mm. Okay, well, Nathan, very helpful. Tell me what's next for you and your company. I know that you're growing a lot and you're in the UAE. What's next for you and your company?
Well, we're spreading our wings from a country perspective. So Dubai and UAE is something we've been working on for the last year, and also growing in the Gulf. We've also expanding into Iceland this year. We've got a thriving economy,
Hmm.
and it's a very interesting space. So for us, that's sort of the practical part of growing the business. But for me, it's also about growing the team and growing the skills of the team, making sure that they're raising their game and untapping their own potential. We've had people who my PA, who started as my PA, is now a keynote speaker.
Wow.
We've got junior coaches who are now coaching top CEOs, and for me, that's really
Mm.
important. That's where I know it's working. It's not just about growth from a dollars perspective.
That you're not putting people in a box, you're letting them grow.
Mm.
A lot of people don't do that in an organization. They're stuck and they don't see the people in front of them that they can advance and do great things. So I love that you're doing that. It's very aligned. And I don't know many companies that do that. They put people in a box and that's what you do forever and you can't move up. That's amazing. So try to work for Nathan, everybody. Okay, Nathan, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. If people want to reach out to you, your website is?
It's upyourlevel.com.
Okay, and that will also be in the show notes. Nathan, I appreciate you coming on. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and turn up. Thank you so much. See you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.